Pro tip of the week is two-factor authentication. What is two-factor authentication? Do you know? Do you know? Is it one factor? What's three-factor? What's 10-factor? No, we're not going to get into that. Okay, two-factor. What's two-factor? There's really basically three factors when you're considering authentication with people. First one is something you have. Okay, so when something you have is you have and you have maybe a username and password, you know, right? So that's something you know. I know this username and password, something I have, maybe a key fob that you have that is on your phone, something you are. So biometrics, fingerprints, eyeball scans, that kind of thing. So your iPhone has, you have a couple, let's look at the typical iPhone and let's look at the two-factor authentication. So something you know, let's say you log into your iPhone with a key, with a PIN, right? So that's something you know. You decide to log in then with your websites where you have the fingerprint scan. So you use your little thumb scan on the little button and then it logs you in through your fingerprint. Now, you had to set all this up. You had to know your password to the site. You had to get it all configured, but it's basically that. Now, something you have is you have the phone. So you have the phone in your hand. So you have all three factors of authentication. All we're talking about is having only two factors. So it's just to basically slow the hacker down. Now, if you have three, I mean, from an Apple standpoint, I'll be honest, it's a solid system. People will say, well, it's got issues, it's got this, it's got that. But Apple's done a really good job of protecting you and your information. But that's not the point. Apple's not the point. The point is that we're talking about two-factor. So let's look in the case of your WordPress site or even a banking site. So something you know would be your username and password. Something you have would be a second factor or some keys. And we're going to talk about something like Google Authenticator, Clef, Duo. And what it is it will provide for you some numbers that time out that you log in, enter in your username, password, and then pop, another box comes up. And in that box, you then open up your Google Authenticator or whatever, and it gives you a digit, and you enter those digits in. Now, these digits will expire, and new ones will come out. So that expiration is good. You want that to happen because then what it does is once it syncs your phone, so the number 12345 comes up on your phone, it's syncing to Google in the cloud, and then it's hitting your site. And then it goes, during this period of time, 123456 should come up. So when you log in to your system and you enter in 123456, it verifies with Google, yes, that's correct. Your phone said it, yes, that's correct. It lets you in. So that's how it works. It's real simple. It's something you know, username and password. Something you have is Google Authenticator, okay? Now, if you need to use your thumbprint scan to get into your phone, then it's something you are, so even better. Now you got three factors. In the past, using two-factor was very expensive. They had to send out key fobs, these little metal things that you'd carry on your key, and it would do the same thing, but it was just an expensive endeavor. It's usually $5 or so, or maybe $10. And as one person, it's not a big deal. But now if you have a whole herd of employees, that can get expensive real quick. So then now that they have these with Google Authenticator and these other two-factor options, that is huge. That is just an awesome thing that you can have to get access to your phone or to your accounts. One thing to consider, though, is not everybody does it. It's just bad. You got to do it. Just do it. So what are your options? You got Google Authenticator, Authy, Duo, and there's many others. But go out there and search for them. See which one works best for you and which one you like. I use Clef for my WordPress site, and I use Google Authenticator for my banking and other options that I have. So it's a great thing to use to help keep people at bay. So where should you use it? Everywhere you can, right? Now, let's talk about that. If you've got a site that you go to, it's just a WordPress site or a blog site that you like to go check things out, and they require two-factor authentication, you got to decide if you want to have that or not. It can get a bit laborious for that. However, if it's anything of any sensitivity that your username or your name, your address, phone number, banking information, any of that, if the site's storing that information, I highly recommend you use two-factor. Because if your password gets hacked, which in today's world where everybody uses the same password, then they can't get access to your account unless they have a two-factor authentication. So it's important to do that. I was talking to some friends of ours, and and I was telling them, or I set up my wife with, actually it was, I wasn't talking, my wife was, and they were talking at work, and one of the people said to her, "What is that?" She said, "Well, my husband's put up two-factor authentication on our phone, on our banking sites." And they go, "Okay, well, you did that I keep my same password for everything." So yeah, most people do. So I highly recommend you use two-factor authentication, especially if you have it on a password manager. LastPass, do it. No question about it. Do it. Because once they get access to LastPass, they got everything. Okay? So that's why you should use it. It'll protect you. It gives you one more level of protection. Downsides, it does add a little complexity, and it does take some time. So it'll take some time to set up, and it adds probably a few more seconds onto actually logging into the site. So you can do a couple different things with that, but bottom line, at the added level of protection, it's so well worth it, especially if you're dealing with things that focus on your identity, your banking, and so forth. I'm a security guy, so yeah, I get that. Most people don't, but all I can say is you get hacked one time and your finances get compromised and they transfer money out of your account, you'll be thinking, you'll be having that thing locked down tight. Well, do it now before you have to worry about it in the future. It's just bad business to not do it, and let the hacker go after somebody else, not you. So just food for thought.